knowing that she was 2 weeks from having a baby, and especially a woman that had a child. It was a friend of my daughter's, and he called me and asked if I'd heard the news. And all morning I had been trying to reach her because I had spoke to her that night.
Did you think something was wrong when you were trying to reach her? Did you feel something?
I felt that it was very odd that I couldn't reach her because I knew she was tired. She only had 2 weeks to go before she delivered, and I felt that something, maybe she'd gone out, but I had to find out. I called her agent, and I said, go see what's wrong with Sharon, because he was only a few blocks from the house, and he never called me back. Mm-hmm. Believe it, he had to identify the bodies after she had returned. Mm-hmm. She got home on July the 12th, and of course she was dead August 9th. Mm-hmm. So I had returned. That I feel sorry for this man, that he chose this way of life and was choosing. There is no way of turning back. You cannot, or society cannot, and I'm not reading notes, they cannot trust you living next door to them. What mercy, sir, did you show my daughter when she was begging for her life? What mercy did you show my daughter when she says, give me 2 weeks to have my baby, and then you can kill me?
This is Doris Tate, the mother of Sharon Tate, and the greatest defender of Charles Manson. Listen to her in front of one of the real murderers of her daughter, Charles Tex Watson.
And was choosing. There is no way of turning back. You cannot, or society cannot, and I'm not reading notes, they cannot trust you living next door to them. What mercy, sir, did you show my daughter when she was begging for her life? What mercy did you show my daughter when she says, give me 2 weeks to have my baby, and then you can kill me? What mercy did you show her? In 21 years, I would like to have asked this prisoner why. He did not know my daughter. He had never seen her, but not that I know of. She'd only been home for 2 weeks. How can an individual, without knowing, without any abrasive feelings toward an individual, go in and slice them up, and this mother, 8.5 months pregnant? What about her family? What about her family? And what about the family that she was going to have, sir? Is that not a family? I saw how your feathers ruffled when you was talking about your family. What about my family? When will she come up for parole? When will I come up for parole? Can you tell me that? Are these 7 victims and possibly more going to walk out of their graves when you get paroled? That wants to live next door to you with your children or with their children, I'll eat my hat. You cannot be trusted. You know, I find it very unusual. I heard today Mr. Watson's age was 22. He was born in 1945 in Dallas, Texas. Sharon was born in 1943 in Dallas, Texas. I find that very unusual. And I might remind, faith has nothing to do with release. If we do, we can open the doors for all inmates throughout California. Let's open the door for Ramirez.
And now, have you heard the connection, the suspects of Doris Tate about a connection of the fact that Sharon Tate was born in Dallas, Texas, and Tex Watson was born in Dallas, Texas in the 40s too.
Throat, but for a fluke. When the death penalty was overturned, his sentence was commuted to life, okay? It took California 3 months to get enough signatures to get that death penalty back on the ballot, and was passed by some 80%. I do not feel that the people of California could accept the fact that a serial killer could be released into society ever again. I'll rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. You're excused. In fact, everybody's excused. Prisoners each for...
I prefer to live all my life in jail with truth than out with a lie. These were the famous words of Charles Manson until his death on November the 19th, 2017. So, first of all, welcome back, my very dear followers, friends, or welcome if it's the first time you are watching my YouTube channel. This is the final chapter about Cielo Drive Massacre. Finally, after more than 50 years, all the truth, the last piece of the puzzle. For all of those who want to know every horrifying detail about Cielo Drive Massacre and the original videos and photos of all the slaughtered victims, uncensored, in Clare, kindly delivered by the American police, I suggest you to watch my documentary Cielo Drive Massacre. Horrifying, uncensored, original videos and photos. And if you want to know why Charles Manson was innocent about Cielo Drive Massacre, because Charles Manson never ordered that horrifying butchery at Cielo Drive, I suggest you to watch my documentary Charles Manson, Serial Killer Who Never Killed and Innocence about Cielo Drive. And I also suggest you my previous documentary Sharon Tate Massacre and the Terrible Secrets of Roman Polanski to have a greater picture of the situation. But now, finally, the last piece of the puzzle. Since now, I want to warn you that I'm going to show you other shocking, uncensored videos and photos of Cielo Drive Butchery, uncensored, completely in Clare. warn you until now, because this will be another docu-shock, because I'm going to show you other photos of the butchery at Cielo Drive Massacre, all the corpses of the victims, and this time I have also the very, very rare photo of the dead body of Frykowski. All the victims and this very rare photo of the dead body of Frykowski, horribly slaughtered, and also the slaughtered bodies of LaBianca couple. So I warn you that this is a docu-shock, uncensored and crude. Now, Helter Skelter, the true crime bestseller in the history ever. How much truth in the book? Charles Manson defined this theory because Vincent Bugliosi wrote a book without concrete evidences, without concrete proofs. So Charles Manson himself defined this book a fairy tale, or to be more specific, a tragic, horrifying fairy tale with no concrete proofs. And the greatest defender of Charles Manson was Doris Tate. Yeah, the mother of Sharon Tate. Do you understand? Charles Manson, as you know, and you can know everything about Charles Manson, childhood, adolescence, and on all the crimes he did in the documentary about my documentary about Charles Manson. Charles Manson was a criminal who lived at the Spawn Ranch. That Spawn Ranch was a desertic, abandoned place before used to shoot Western movies, far from Los Angeles City. And there lived the so-called Manson family. As Charles Manson specified, the Manson family was actually his music band, Manson family, where there were girls singing, boys playing, and also Charles Manson was a very great singer, author of wonderful songs and musics. Really, he was a genius on this side. So, at the Spawn Ranch, many people lived there because not necessarily poor people, also rich people who escaped from conservative families who didn't accept different kinds of living. Girls without partners, with single mothers. Many people addicted to drugs. In fact, there were many drugs dealers at the Spawn Ranch, and so on. And think about that, at the Spawn Ranch, about 70 people lived there, and Charles Manson, of course, was the leader, a guru, but he didn't know exactly all the people living at the Spawn Ranch. In fact, Linda Kasabian, the witness who sent Charles Manson in jail, she risked many years in jail. Instead, if she witnessed against Charles Manson and other people, she got immunity. And Charles Manson was very quiet and calm at the trial because he stated, Linda Kasabian, I spoke with her just maximum 50 words. It's impossible that she can come to a trial and to say that I am a killer because I've never killed anyone in all of my life, and that I ordered that horrifying massacre at Cielo Drive. The last piece of the puzzle is Charles, but not Charles Manson, but Charles Tex Watson. Charles Tex Watson slaughtered Sharon Tate with Susan Atkins at the same time. Sharon Tate received 16 stabs, and 5 of these 16 stabs were fatal. So we can say that both Tex Watson and Susan Atkins killed Sharon Tate. Susan Atkins had a personal motive because 2 years before, Susan Atkins, as I told you in the previous documentaries, was an actress too. Of course, she wasn't very famous. She shot some horror corto for Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. She attended the Church of Satan. She wanted to become a famous actress. When Roman Polanski decided to shoot the movie Dance of Vampires, did a casting, and both Susan Atkins and Sharon Tate attended the casting. And in the beginning, Roman Polanski was skeptical about Sharon Tate in playing that part, because he didn't think she was able to play very well, and instead then she played perfectly. Instead, he also put his eyes on Susan Atkins. But the staff, producers, told Roman Polanski, "What the hell? Don't you see the enchanting beauty of Sharon Tate? Are you kidding?" So Roman Polanski decided to choose Sharon Tate and refused Susan Atkins. So Susan Atkins, into herself, accused Sharon Tate to have stolen her part in Dance of Vampires. Then, when she discovered that Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski got engaged and then got married, she deeply hated Sharon Tate. And when she found Sharon Tate in front of her, tied, "No mercy for you and your baby." But Tex Watson, Doris Tate had some suspects about the connection of the fact that both Sharon Tate, her daughter, and Charles Tex Watson were born. They both were born in Dallas, Texas, in the 40s. Charles Tex Watson killed Sharon Tate. When medias tell you that Sharon Tate was 8 months and a half pregnant, it's true. But it's not true when they tell you Sharon Tate and her unborn child. Because Sharon Tate, when the massacre happened, when Susan Atkins slaughtered Sharon Tate. She cut her stomach and she pulled her baby out of her womb and threw the baby into the ground. On the ground, the baby survived. There had been an autopsy also on the so-called fetus, and he wasn't a free fetus. He was a born child because he survived at least 15, 19 minutes out of the womb of Sharon Tate. So he was a born baby. And he was buried with his mother, Sharon Tate, and he was baptized with the name Paul Richard Poleski. So he was a born child. Then the other victim, then the other killers of all the other inhabitants at that moment at the lab house at Cielo Drive 10050 were Patricia Krenwinkel and Linda Kasabian, who only was doing the lookout. And Charles Manson had been considered for too many years, and it wasn't right. The mastermind, the leader of the Spawn Ranch who ordered that horrifying massacre at Cielo Drive. And but accounts, witnesses, contradictions of why that horrifying butchery happened came to pass differ widely. Witnesses even changed during the trials. Victims were Sharon Tate, her born baby for 15, 19 minutes out of her womb, Paul Richard Poleski, Jay Sebring, the most famous hairdresser of all the Hollywood stars, the great love of Sharon Tate before meeting Roman Poleski, but they remained best friends and they were very, very close. Rumors said that they could get together again. Then Frykowski, a writer, friend of Roman Poleski, Abigail Folger coffee heiress, Frykowski girlfriend, and still parent, such young guy who was only 18, who tried to sell an alarm clock radio to the caretaker of Cielo Drive property, William Garretson, was immediately brutally murdered by Tex Watson. One of the detectives arrived at the crime scene, when he saw the dead bodies brutally slaughtered of Frykowski and Abigail Folger, stated they looked like mannequins that had been dipped in red paint, then tossed haphazardly on the grass. The massacre at Cielo Drive happened on August the 9th, 1969. The following night, the horrifying massacre of the couple LaBianca. These were the words of Charles Manson. I helped to tie up Rosemary and Lino LaBianca, reassuring Rosemary that if she was quiet, they only wanted to steal, to do a robbery in their house, but nothing would have hurt her. And in fact, Charles Manson went away before Charles Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, and Linda Kasabian, always the lookout, slaughtered the LaBianca couple. So even in this case, Charles Manson wasn't in the crime scene during the butchery. And these points that he wasn't able to go through with the killing. Charles Manson is still considered one of the fiercest serial killers in the history ever, when he never killed anyone, really, and is still compared to the fiercest serial killer of history, and is considered the fiercest serial killer of history when he never killed a person with his hands. Compared to Jack the Ripper, Ted Bundy, Zodiac, and many others. But he didn't kill anybody and swore, even before dying in 2017, that he never ordered Cielo Drive Massacre and to slaughter Sharon Tate, that he thought she was a wonderful creature, and left his testament documentary, Charles Manson Final Words, shot in 2017, because Charles Manson, at the beginning of 2017, on January, discovered to have a colon cancer. So he decided to do this testament documentary explaining how he really was, Charles Manson Final Words, with the director James Badiday. In fact, he didn't kill any of the people he was convicted of killing. One, as I told you before, one of the greatest supporters of Charles Manson about Sharon Tate massacre, and also at least other 7 crimes, was incredibly Doris Tate and the intuition of a mother, as I've shown you before. And now in few minutes we immediately return to my personal computer to watch all the files, all the videos, to make you understand the last piece of the puzzle, all the truth about Cielo Drive Massacre, the last piece of the puzzle. So, Doris Tate, and incredibly later, also Tex Watson took his own responsibility, and I'll show you Tex Watson saying that he did it because he was under drugs, but he wanted to do at that moment, under the influence of all those psychedelic drugs, he did those massacres, and it wasn't Charles Manson's blame. What framed Charles Manson? There wasn't a concrete proof. Instead, the pervasive power of a persuasive man I'm talking about Vincent Bugliosi, his own and that of prosecuting attorney in the Tate LaBianca trial. Helter Skelter is bestseller book ever in the kind crime books. Released in 1974, Bugliosi in 736 pages tries to convince public opinion the motive for Tate LaBianca murders with a fantastical end of the world theory that doesn't convince at all. Susan Atkins, cellmate, also stated she never talked about Helter Skelter. She didn't know what it was, but she told me every detail about the murders. In fact, it was thanks to Susan Atkins who boasted in jail. Police is so stupid. I myself stabbed Sharon Tate. I was at Cielo Drive Massacre and also boasted the connection. Cielo Drive Massacre and the massacre of LaBianca Couple, but she never talked about Helter Skelter. So, Linda Kasabian, as I told you before, witnessed against Charles Manson because then she risked the death penalty or to spend many years in prisons. And she also had a daughter to raise. So she witnessed and she got immunity. Later, his lawyer, the lawyer at the time of Linda Kasabian, admitted that Charles Manson didn't have a right trial, which is the truth. Some journalists described Vincent Bugliosi, the bulldog lawyer who manipulated witnesses and leaned heavily on a far-out theory to get the death sentence he wanted. So, the same Charles Manson claimed that many books, medias, movies, journalists, writers, filmmakers sold their soul for money. They did millions of dollars with those books, movies, magazines, participating in a perpetuation of Manson's demonic myth. And it was a lie! Charles Manson rejected Satanism and he was fanatic about Jesus Christ figure. And instead, medias wrote and made the image of Charles Manson. Charles Manson had been depicted as the evil celebrity, a mystic killer who had supernatural powers, and this heavy description ended up to influence the public opinion and all the following trials. In the last part of the book, Bugliosi suggests Manson was caught up in a satanic cult without a concrete proof. So, in Helter Skelter, Bugliosi wrote, with regard to Leslie Van Houten, who of the three girls was less committed to Manson, yet still murdered for him, I fear that she may grow harder and tougher. I have very little hope for her eventual rehabilitation. Bugliosi was wrong again. On July 2023, Leslie Van Houten was released on parole after 53 years in prison. Her lawyer, Nancy Tetrault, stated in The Guardian, "I've never had a client who has dedicated herself to reform like she has." So, are you ready? The last piece of the puzzle was Charles, but not Charles Manson. Charles Tex Watson, or real name Charles Denton Watson Jr., was born on December the 2nd in 1945 in Capeville, near Dallas, Texas. His nickname was Tex. He got married in prison with Christine Joan Svedge, and they got married on September the 7th, 1979, and they divorced in 2004. And this is something Doris states couldn't forgive, because a serial killer, because he was really a death machine, he had a normal sexual life in prison that it was denied to almost all the other criminals, killers who were in prison. But there was also a reason, a scandal reason, I think. Because in 1975, Tex Watson boasted that he was a reborn Christian, that he was completely devoted to Jesus Christ. And his conversion to Christian religion brought in 1983 to make him become an ordained minister with all his benefits. So he had a wife and also 4 children, and they divorced in 2004 only because California in 1996 forbade sex in prison. So his wife found a new partner and they divorced in 2004, but they still remained friends, and his ex-wife and his children always kept on supporting Tex Watson. When there were the Maxi arrest at the Spawn Ranch on October 1969, Tex Watson escaped in Texas, but then he got arrested and extradited in California. And so he was condemned to death penalty like all the other ones, Charles Manson, Patricia Krenwinkel, Susan Atkins. But then you must know this bizarre event, because they were all condemned in 1971. But in California, in 1972, the death penalty had been abolished. So their sentences, their condemns were were turned from death penalty into life in prison. Then, in 1978, the death penalty was put again in California, and nowadays in California, we are in 2024, there is death penalty. And at that time, Tex Watson and his wife operate a prison ministry called Abounding Love Ministries. In his Tex Watson, in his childhood and adolescence, he went to church with his family every Sunday and often every Wednesday evening. He was an excellent student at the high school. He was also an athlete and the editor of school paper called iLife. Then he moved to California to change his life in Charles Manson claimed his innocence until his death. He said, "I didn't have nothing to do with killing those people," he said in a phone call with Buddy Day. And also added, "They knew I didn't have anything to do with it." So Charles Manson told Buddy Day the real summer of 1969 totally different from Helter Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi.
That I had called Sharon that evening was probably in between 11:30 and midnight, just prior to midnight, somewhere in that zone. She had her friends, Wojtek and Abigail, and Jay Sebring visiting her. Jay Sebring was the first innovator in men's hairstyling. He was a very dear friend of Sharon's, but had actually started off as a romantic interest. And it was a very close friendship after the romantic interest had ceased. Abigail Folger, heiress to Folger Coffee, and her boyfriend Wojtek Frykowski were visiting her that evening as well. Roman had been away in Europe the whole summer. He was due to come back in a day or two, and she just couldn't wait. She really wanted to do the mommy and daddy at home in their sweet little nest with waiting for their little chick to arrive. You know, she really was looking forward to that.
That was Deborah Tate, one of Sharon Tate's sisters, her account of that night. And now I warn you, I really warn you, several images could disturb the sensitivity of the viewers, because now in this video I will show you all the victims of Cielo Drive Massacre, included the slaughtered body of Frykowski. So I warn you, because these are uncensored and crude. I immediately go on.
At 8:30 this morning, Winifred Chapman, an employee, came to work at 10050 Cielo and found several bodies in the house, and immediately the police were notified.
On the night of the Tate murders, Stephen Parent, an 18-year-old young man who was visiting the caretaker of the residence, Tex Watson shot him 4 times, left him dead.
This is one I also shown you other photos of the corpse of Steve Parent. This is another photo of the poor Steve Parent, only 18 years old, slaughtered by Tex Watson.
Behind the steering wheel. The killers rounded up everyone inside. Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski in the living room. They had a rope and they threw it around the necks of Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, and Jay Sebring, and they secured the rope by throwing it over a beam in the ceiling. And then they pulled on it to make it very tight. Watson said, "You're all going to die." And that's when they started begging and pleading for their lives, but there was no mercy. And the vicious stabbing and the horror and the brutality began. It was an orgy of murder. Wojciech Frykowski.
This is the very rare photo of the slaughtered body of Frykowski. Frykowski, I already told you in the last in the other documentaries that he fought in a supernatural way because he was shot, he was stabbed so many times that if he didn't die, he would have been immortal. His body completely slaughtered, and also his head was smashed. Really a brutal death, a brutal and very long agony.
He was stabbed 51 times. Shot twice, hit over the head with the butt of a revolver 13 times. Abigail Folger was stabbed 28 times. Jay Sebring was stabbed 7 times, and he was also shot. Sharon Tate was stabbed 16 times, and she had rope burns around her neck. Susan Atkins told me that she told Sharon Tate, "Look, bitch, I don't have any mercy on you. You're going to die." There was a moment where she was thinking of trying to cut the baby out of the womb. So horrible that... Before they left the residence, Susan Atkins dipped a towel in Sharon Tate's blood and wrote the word pig, P-I-G, on the front door of the Tate residence.
Roman was...
They were looking throughout the city of LA, this vast metropolis, for the victims completely at random. Lino and Rosemary LaBianca lived at this residence. I think it was 3301 Waverly Drive in the Los Feliz area, Los Angeles. Lino was the owner of Gateway Markets, a small supermarket chain in LA. His wife had a very successful boutique.
Now I must warn you again. I'm going now in this video show you the dead bodies really slaughtered of LaBianca couple, Rosemary LaBianca and Lino LaBianca. So I warn you, if you want to watch at them, some images could disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. And now I go on.
Mary LaBianca had 13 post-mortem wounds. She had already died, and Leslie Van Houten continued to stab. Now that shows, gusto, relish, enjoying what you're doing. Leslie Van Houten later said, the more I stabbed, the more fun it was. So poor Rosemary had 41 stab wounds.
This was the dead body, the slaughtered body of Rosemary LaBianca, who had a kind of cap over the head. Then they will explain you the situation. I'm not able to see the head, but the body was completely massacred.
Rosemary had 41 stab wounds. Lino had 26 stab wounds, but in addition to that, they left a knife and a fork protruding from his body, and Patricia Krenwinkel carved the word war on his stomach.
This was the slaughtered body of Lino LaBianca. As you can see, he had been tied. He had a pillow on his head, and Patricia Krenwinkel carved on his stomach the word pig, and he was transfixed with a great fork, as you may see.
The police, when they arrived, found, if I recall, a pillowcase over the heads of Rosemary and Lino, and there was a cord from a large lamp next to each of them, wrapped around their neck, very, very tightly. And they wrote the words helter skelter on the refrigerator door in blood. They wrote the words death to pigs and rise, R-I-S-E, on the wall of the living room.
This was Tex Watson, very young, arrested and then condemned to death penalty. Then, as I told you before, in California, in 1972, the death penalty had been abolished, so their sentences were turned from death penalty to life in prison. I go on. This is Susan Atkins. Patricia Krenwinkel. Leslie Van Houten. Charles Manson. And Linda Kasabian. So, Linda Kasabian got the immunity because she witnessed, but above all because Vincent Bugliosi helter-skelter theory with no concrete proofs. Now, listen to Doris Tate, what she tells you about Vincent Bugliosi and Helter Skelter. I completely agree with her, and I've always admired, really, Doris Tate.
Where did Mr. Bugliosi, the prosecutor, get this information for Helter Skelter? Did he talk to you about where you were?
Never. Never.
They invent these things?
Sure. Where
Sells
else
books?
do they come from?
It
you
sells
know?
books?
Well, the fact that when he says I was there visiting, it makes it sound like we're separated and I just went to see him.
Or that he was in the military and you reside in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
The night of the murders,
Yes.
you have two other daughters, Deborah and Patty.
Yes.
Deborah had residence there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Been there a lot.
Yes.
Knew it as well as Tex
Well, I
Thompson
knew.
did.
Well, now I'm not going to say that. Okay, knew it as well as he did because my suspicions are that he had been up there many times before.
He says that's true.
Is that right?
He does.
Now you know, Bill, since I have not read any of the books.
Doris State was right because of the key to the solution of Cielo Drive Massacre is Jess Tex Watson, Charles Tex Watson. He is the last piece of the puzzle, the solution. Watch this.
Small town, Cokeville, Texas. That's about 35 miles north of Dallas. It was a typical childhood. I had a good family. No problem with that. My family was really good. The relationships with my families were strong, but basically still I think I was mainly concentrating on things that were outside of really sharing deep feelings with one another. There was love in the family, but I really wasn't really interested in sharing love and relationships. I grew up in what you would say would be a Christian family. Went to church every Sunday morning, sometimes on Wednesday night, vacation Bible schools, and on the outside, it looked like I was a real fine child, but I think I was really troubled inside, and I think that's where the real problem was. I met Charles Manson one night when Dennis Wilson asked me to come in. I'd picked up Dennis Wilson hitchhiking. I took him into his big long driveway, and we went inside. He invited me in for a cup of coffee, and into the living room there was this man sitting there named Charles Manson around this coffee table with a few girls, and Dennis and myself, we went over to the coffee table and sat down, and the first thing that I heard was, "Would you like some hash?" Manipulate. He knew how to talk to people in the right way. He had studied all sorts of personalities, I think. He had studied Scientology, and he knew people. He knew how to take the minds of the young people and twist them around his little finger and be able to talk about all the things that they were rebelling from. We not only opened ourselves up to the music of Manson, I was completely deceived. I was 23 years old when I was on these drugs. And I didn't realize I was into sorcery. I didn't realize I was into witchcraft. I just thought I was playing with drugs and having fun. When in all actuality, I wasn't worshiping satanic symbols. I didn't know anything about the Satanic Bible. I was completely unaware of what I was doing. Completely deceived. Don't say that the drug was responsible for the crime. I was responsible for the crime. I made all the decisions from day one to make the choices that I made. But the methamphetamine caused all the violence, the anger, the hatred, the rebellion, the resentment, everything that was still in me, everything that I thought the drugs were taking from me and bringing me to that state of nothingness. They were all still there. That raging individual was ready to come out. And when I committed my first crime and walked into the house, after I'd already killed one person, I told this individual that I was about to kill, I said, "I'm the devil.
and I'm here to do the devil's work. I had never thought I was the devil before. I'd never said I was the devil. I didn't think I was the devil. But out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
The defendant shall rise.
Thing had taken place in my life. I asked Jesus to come into my heart. And I felt a peace and a love and a joy come in that I had never experienced before. And all the way back home that night over to my cell, which is not very far, I went home and I looked in the mirror, and there was just a glow on my face, and my face was glowing, and I looked in the mirror and I says, and this is free? And I thought to myself, I said, here I spent all this money on drugs all my life, and here I've received exactly what I was looking for, in Christ Jesus.
And now, these are the most important statements by Tex Watson, because he took his own responsibilities and he doesn't blame Charles Manson for the slaughters. Listen to Charles Tex Watson.
It's taken me years to accept complete responsibility for the crime that I've committed, and I feel I have accepted that. And I hope in no way that I've in any way I've given the impression that I'm trying to blame anything on my parents, or blame anything on drugs, or blame anything on rock music, or blame anything on Manson, because I do take complete responsibility.
And as I sat there and I just cried.
So, have you heard Tex Watson? I don't blame drugs, I don't blame rock music, I don't blame Manson. I do take my own responsibility. And now, about Tex Watson, watch this.
Watson's victims. I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business, Charles Tex Watson told one of his victims, a Polish actor named Wojtek Frykowski, on the night of August 8, 1969. Watson eventually killed Frykowski, shooting him, stabbing him, and clubbing him.
The wonderful Sharon Tate, one of the most gorgeous actresses ever. I go on.
Pregnant actor Sharon Tate and the LaBiancas, who were successful grocery store owners. In November 1971, Judge Adolph Alexander sentenced Watson to death after a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder in the Tate-LaBianca deaths. In 1972, California overturned the death penalty, and Watson was instead given life in prison. In Watson's more than 5 decades behind bars, he's been denied parole 18 times, but he's still managed to get married and divorced, father 4 children, and start a Christian ministry. Tex Watson is currently serving his prison sentence at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. The nearly 800-acre facility is located on an arid mesa outside of the city, less than a mile from the Mexican border, and is surrounded by other law enforcement facilities. The prison has a commercial bakery, laundry area, and shoemaking facility where inmates work. According to the transcript from his 2021 parole hearing, Watson was a hazmat porter, akin to janitorial service, at the prison from 2009 to 2017. He later became involved in facilitating recovery groups. Among the more than 3,000
So, you heard
there were several other
his conversion, he had these benefits, but now, you will see what happened. Look at this. I'm pretty shocked.
Tex Watson found God and became a born-again Christian. He told the parole board in 2016, and from that point on, I began to look for ways that I could really reach out to people. He founded his ministry in 1980, became an ordained minister the next year, and launched his ministry's website in 1997. He has gained many supporters who believe he's a changed man, including the daughter of Rosemary LaBianca, one of Watson's victims. Watson wrote in his book, Charles Watson Speaks Out.
It's incredible because I forgot to tell you that the daughter of LaBianca Couple's forgave completely Tex Watson, and they became like brother and sister. Really shocking. I admire her because it was quite impossible to forgive him. But then look at this.
Funds for personal use. In September 1979, Tex Watson married Kristen Jones Svedge in a prison ceremony. They had begun corresponding through the mail before falling in love. According to journalist Scott Thomas Anderson, the prison allowed them to have conjugal visits until 1996, when the state outlawed them for inmates serving life sentences. They had 4 children together and divorced in 2003. While married, Svedge not only raised their children, but also financially supported Watson's elderly parents before they died. Her testimony in the 2016 parole hearing. In 2011, Anderson claimed that even after the divorce, Svedge continued to stand by Watson and push for his release. When his children were young, he explained to them why he was behind bars. Watson told the parole board, "I put it to them in a way that a 6-year-old could understand, that Dad did a horrible thing in the late 60s, and that he's now suffering the consequences of what he's done." He said he continues to have close relationships with his children and his siblings. November 15th, 2021, a California parole board again denied Tex Watson his freedom. It was the then 77-year-old's 18th try. In making its decision, the board found Watson, quote, "does pose a reasonable risk to public safety and is not suitable for parole at this time, due in part to a lack of effective growth and an incomplete acceptance of responsibility."
And this video finally proves what Charles Manson always stated to be innocent about Cielo Drive Massacre. Doris states, listen to her, and incredibly, Tex Watson agrees with her. So, this is the truth about Cielo Drive Massacre. Listen to it, because this is the key of everything. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle and the solution.
This man was not guilty of murdering my daughter, okay? Of all the 7 murders that I know of, he did not commit one of them, all right? I feel that he has taken the blame for all of them. And the ones that should be blamed for is Tex Watson.
And I hope in no way that I've in any way I've given the impression that I'm trying to blame anything on my parents, or blame anything on drugs, or blame anything on rock music, or blame anything on Manson, because I do take complete responsibility.
And now you can ask me, what else about Cielo Drive? What else? Do you know about what happened to the house at Cielo Drive, the so-called Love House? Do you know about Trent Reznor? Yeah, Trent Reznor, the frontman of 9 Inch Nails Experience. And do you know that the house is still haunted by all the ghosts? Sharon Tate, Steve Parent, Jay Sebring, Frykowski, and so on. I want to warn you again, because at some point I will show you the real photos of the ghosts. So, let's go.
10050 Cielo Drive was sold to real estate investor John Press for $1.6 million. 3 years later, Press sold the house to another investor, Alvin Weintraub, for $2.25 million. Weintraub then rented the house to musician Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails. Reznor knew the history of the house, although he later feigned ignorance with one of Sharon's sisters, and he built a recording studio inside, naming it Le Pig, in honor of the bloody script left by killer Susan Atkins in 1969. Nine Inch Nails recorded their album The Downward Spiral at Le Pig in 1994, and Marilyn Manson also booked the studio for his album Portrait of an American Family. Reznor later admitted that he experienced some strange things at the property during the 2 years he resided there.
And now, I read you the statement, the official statement of Trent Reznor. Is horrifying and really experience scared him so much that he escaped. I read you the official statement. The first night was terrifying. By then, I knew all about the place. I'd read all the books about the Manson murders. So I walked the place at night, and everything was dark, and I was like, holy Jesus, that's where it happened. Scary, I jumped a mile at every sound. Even if it was an all. I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a coyote looking in the window at me. I thought, I'm not gonna make it.
Of 10050 in 94, taking the front door with him. It is allegedly at his New Orleans recording studio today. The Love House was demolished that year. A new house was built at the property in 1996, and the address was formally changed to 10066 Cielo Drive to keep the looky-loos unsuccessfully away. The new house was a Mediterranean-style mansion 6 times larger than the original house that owner Alvin Weintraub named Villa Bella. Villa Bella boasted 9 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, a wine cellar, and private screening room. He then attempted to sell the property in 1998, but took it off the market. He tried again in 2002. The property bore no resemblance to the house where Sharon Tate and 4 others were savagely murdered, but Weintraub could not get the return on his investment he had desired. Some say that Benedict Canyon is haunted with the ghosts of Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojtek Frykowski, and Stephen Parent. Reports of a woman's screams, of ghostly apparitions, have been whispered for years.
And now, are you ready to watch how Cielo Drive Love House, or it's better to call it Villa Bella, and also the address changed from Cielo Drive 10050 to Cielo Drive 10066. Think about that this video has been shot just few months ago, so you can watch how Villa Bella is right now, and I warn you until now. You will also see real ghosts, photos, and much more. So be careful, because some images could disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. And thanks to the owner of Villa Bella, David Oman.
This driveway.
Okay.
All went down. This house was just being totally eviscerated and remodeled to the bone. Was original. This was here during the murders, and I'll tell you further more about that house.
Already? Absolutely.
At the White House down there is also original. It's been remodeled extensively.
Yes.
But it's an original house. This house and my house and the house next door are totally brand new.
Okay.
And then, of course, the Tate property here, which you're looking at, where it stood, is totally unique in the sense that the gate sits about 20 feet.
This gate right here, this is the driveway.
This is the driveway that led up to where it was. And the property, the Tate gate sat another 20 feet plus in.
Okay.
There's a vacant lot in between the house and the Tate gate.
Okay.
Where the property is. And the reason why the Tate address is now 10,066 is because they bought the empty lot, which was 10,066.
Okay.
And when they incorporated that into the Tate property, that ended up becoming the new address.
Oh, okay. It's not original. The telephone pole was over here on this side. Very, very interesting. But that's the hillside right there. Housekeeper ran right here to this house. They didn't answer the door. On that night, they did not answer the door. So she runs over
to this house, and the 16-year-old son of the owner was there, and she basically met the police here and told them what she found.
Okay. So this is right, this house is original, and this is where the police meet her?
Yeah.
And she tells them
the story.
What's going on?
They were discovered this morning by a maid who ran screaming to neighbors.
The whole thing, they debrief her in this house, and then she goes to the property and shows them what had happened.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 25 years ago in 1998, how do you end up here?
My father calls me up Sunday morning and says, I found a piece of real estate.
And then he will tell you, David Oman, that they bought this house and he moved into Villa Bella in 2002.
This is my home for the rest of my life.
Right.
So we built the house, and during construction, as the floors are going up, I'm walking around, and I almost feel like I can hear somebody coming up behind me.
Right.
And I was going to say, David, and I said, yeah, what? And I turn around, there's no one there. The guys, the laborers that are all, 5 of them are from El Salvador, that are working on the place, who have no idea about the Sharon Tate murders and don't know anything about the history of the area, are sitting there asking me, why are tools missing from going from one room and they're not where they're supposed to be, and the next minute they're finding them in another room. And I'm going, look, I have no idea about that. I'm not messing with your tools. What do you think I am? I mean, after the job and new stuff. And I said, no. Then they tell me, 6 months before we're done, I line up the guys. I said, look, I said, have any of you guys had any weird experiences here? And one guy says, yeah. I can do this.
Right here in this room. Oh, yeah, so there's the fireplace.
Right.
And there's where the image appears.
That's right over this couch. The couch would have been sitting right diagonally there. So the photographs I'm about to share with you, and mind you, when I'm taking the pictures, I'm just not like going, oh, spirit, smile, gotcha, thank you.
You're just trying to capture whatever you can.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And this was shot on the 35th, again, that was shot on the 35th anniversary of the murders, August 9th, 2004. This was shot on August 9th, 2004. This was shot in this room, and that's right here, shooting it that way. We were shooting it this way towards, because that's right here on the counter.
Yeah.
And look at these two things, and it can't be the camera strap. Camera strap is black.
Yeah.
This changes colors, and it's translucent. It's transparent and translucent right there, and then it goes from blue, light dark blue to a light blue to a black right here, which is obscuring this whole thing.
Right.
It's, it's hard to say what it is.
Yeah, that was on the anniversary.
The 35th anniversary of the murders. The first investigation that was held here at the house was on that night.
And you're literally a few hundred feet from
the Sharon Tate murders.
And now, the most shocking photos of the ghosts.
You're in it.
You would think this would be it. I mean, you're
Barry Taft calls
close.
Barry Taft, Dr. Barry Taft referred to this house as the Mount Everest of haunted houses and the Disneyland for the dead.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, of all these pictures are probably, how should we say, probably of 350 photographs. These are the ones that that captured something. And again, this going from the dining room into the living room shouldn't be there. This is the pregnant orb in the balcony window right there where the screen's open and the windows are open.
Yeah.
Yet right here, there's this something inside of something else orb.
That's just incredible. And I can tell you guys, if you can't see this with my cameras, I can see it as I'm here. So it may not show up as well as I want it to, but I'm looking at the photos and the orbs are there.
And then you got this manifestation here right above the headboard in my bedroom.
I think that this is the most shocking photos. This is the bedroom in which David Oman, the owner of Villa Bella, sleeps. And look at this. This is the ghost of Sharon Tate. It really gives me chills. Oh my God, really.
Again, 35 millimeter, 400 speed film, I do believe this one was. And then this one, which is looking right into the doorway, the entryway here. This painting is replaced by that painting. That's the doorway going into the bathroom. And this thing manifests. And it shouldn't be there. It's not like I see it. I just take the picture when we develop the film.
You don't see it until you actually
develop the film photo. Which, that's old school because they don't, you know, it's hard to get that done. This is going in from the dining room into the living room where there's fireplace. Right. And this thing manifests. And look, it's not here. And it changes colors. Look at the colors it changes. And this is, again, 35 millimeter high-speed film.
Incredible.
You know, the only good thing about a blow-up is you can see greater detail than you can on the photograph.
Absolutely. And you have to wonder, right, what is that?
And I want to say a shout-out to Joey Moss, because I saw you were looking at the first Sharon Tate portrait that I got, which he painted. I mean, I've got a lot of his artwork in the house.
So, I want to tell you something. This was the final chapter about Cielo Drive Massacre. I want to really thank my followers, friends, viewers, and from the bottom of my heart, I really thank you for your support, your love and affection. I want to send you a great hug to everybody. See you soon. Stay tuned.